So for this illustration, I'm combining two videos. The one video that you see is called How to Do a Track Inspection on a Class 1 Railroad. The next video that I'll be using is this video from Dale Ratzlaff, 3 Adventist Doctrines that Compromise the Gospel. Now that YouTube channel is Former Adventist, and he founded the group and he founded the channel and so forth. So here's a man who knows what he's talking about. He was a pastor in the Adventist church for about, I think, 15 years. So he's doing his best to help people to come out of this cult. So the illustration comes from Dale Ratzlaff. But it's so good that I decided I should film it. It's not my own. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have Dale speak as I play this video on doing a track inspection. So I'll start that. There's no sound on that.
Good morning, everybody.
Wait a minute. Hold, there is sound. Get the sound off for you. And they're riding on one of those car-like, truck-like vehicles that goes on railroad tracks.
Write one article in the paper expressing my own views. They are what God has opened to me in vision, the precious ray of light shining from the throne. Testimonies to the Church, Volume 5, page 67. So what have we learned so far? Let's review. 1. The fundamental beliefs states, in part, that Ellen White's writings are a continuing and authoritative source of truth. Number 2. Many Adventists, not all, but many Adventist leaders and people put the writings of Ellen White on the same level as Scripture. I did before I learned the gospel. And the lady that just was up here did the same thing. Most of us did. And number 3, Ellen White herself stated that what she wrote came from God. Now, Ellen White has written volumes of material. If you took all of her books and stacked them up, it'd be about that high. That'll look good, won't it? Now, I'd like to give an illustration. I think that if she's a true prophet, even though she has many theologically correct statements, they ought to all be in harmony with the gospel and Scripture. Would you agree? An illustration. We used to live right around the corner. There was a man that worked for the railroad, and he had one of these special pickup trucks that he could pull a lever and he could put the train wheels down. He had train wheels in front and back, so he could actually run down the track. And his job was to check out the track to see if there was any problems, any twisted rails, broken rails, make sure the switches were working okay. I'm going to ask you a question now. Let's just kind of play with this. Let's say he had 500 miles of rail to check out. So he goes 495 miles and does not find a single problem. But in the last 5 miles, he finds a broken rail, a twisted rail, and he finds a switch that takes the main thing and goes over to an abandoned junkyard. Would he certify that that was a good, safe place for a train to run because 99% was good? No, 95%, only 5% had a problem? Would he? No. See, I think it's the same way with Ellen White. We should look at her statements, and if she doesn't agree with Scripture, and if she's contrary to the gospel, a few twisted rails can cause a terrible train wreck. All right. So what have we learned? Here's a quote. And you tell me.
So I'd like to thank both of these YouTube channels. And I'd like to make this an application for checking everything out with Scripture. And if there's even a small portion that doesn't check out with Scripture, then maybe it shouldn't be certified. An example of this in the one video I did, where I'm pretending to sit down with 4 seminary professors in Southern Baptist tradition, and one of them started talking about the children of God and called it semi-Christian. And then quickly changed to, no, it was a cult. It's an example of what I'm talking about. There is no semi-Christian. There is no, well, the tracks are 95% safe. 5% maybe there'll be a train wreck. So I ask you a question. You're on a passenger train. The tracks have been certified for 95% of your travel, not 100%. Would you get on the train and say, oh, well, if we hit the 5% and we wreck, so what? Now that's the way it is with deception. You may get 95%, pretty good, but it's at 5%, it's a killer. And incidentally, that's how you get rid of rodents, there's mice and rats. You feed them something like oatmeal. It's like 98% oatmeal and 2% poison. In fact, this happened to me very early in life. I was serving a rural church, and my young son was investigating behind the piano. And they had a trap back there that was one of those oatmeal traps where the mice come and eat the oatmeal, but there's arsenic in it. And my son had ingested some of it. And immediately I called the poison center and they said, don't worry about it, he'll be just fine. It's like 98% oatmeal, 2% arsenic. So you have to ingest a lot of it, is the idea. But it's the 2% arsenic that kills. And it's the 5% on the railroad track that's not consistent and safe that kills. And that's what this gentleman is getting to in his ministry to people who are still in the Adventist church, because Ellen White's writings are considered either on equal with the scriptures or sometimes even above. And that's one of the marks of a cult. So check everything out, and even if there's just a little bit in there that you say, oh, well, that's not scriptural, well, guess what? The point he's making is, get out. Don't get on the tracks. I'd like to thank you for watching this, and also thanking both these channels for making their videos and allowing me to use them. Thank you for watching. End of video.